Hello and welcome to Birth of a New Dimension. My name is Aurora, and as I usually introduce myself, I am a galactic walk-in. So this means that I'm not the first or original inhabitant ego of this physical body structure. And I bring that up. Why do I feel it is necessary in order to do that? Because I am here to share with you the ideas and perspective that I have from my particular experience of being in abstraction, coming into this body and vibrating the organic cellular structure of this body in this new format that is known as the flying rainbow lasagna. A brief pause. So the flying rainbow lasagna is the interdimensional or hyperdimensional portal shape through which my consciousness was able to come and inhabit this physical human body. And I share it with people as much as I possibly can because I like to say this is not a proprietary shape. This is not something that is just for me. I could have said, oh, I'm going to keep this like the Lord of the Rings, the precious. It's only for me. It's my secret and no one else will ever know about it and no one else will ever use it. And I can use it in order to, have superpowers or travel interdimensionally or do whatever I wish to do. And that is not the approach that I took. I took the approach that is more along the lines of open source code, like the software movement of open source code, where it's more of a collaborative approach. And I was speaking I'm doing a live stream at the same time that I'm doing this recording on Busker. Busker is a pretty cool app where you can share your art and creativity more widely. It is the idea that we are connected in consciousness and that it is much more fun to consciously connect with other aware individuals who know that they are musicians or participants in a larger symphony and who are sensitive to the other musicians. So I was using the analogy of you are a musician and your body is like your instrument, and the musical score of the cosmos, that is this energetic structure that is made out of the timelines of your life. Your timelines are made out of possibilities and probabilities. And, the distinction between those two would be like what can possibly happen and the likelihood of what can possibly happen. And so if I were not on the radio, if you were in front of me right now, I would draw the time vortex. And the time vortex is the vortex shape. I'm also holding up this little sculpture that is at the very bottom of this chakra or spinning energy center structure. And that core central possibility is known as the path of least likelihood. So just repeating myself here so that I made sure that it comes through on the recording. There is a central timeline that goes up the center like a spindle of this time vortex shape. And in terms of probability, it is the least likely thing to happen. It is the least probable. If we were looking at it from the top down, it would look like an old-fashioned analog record. Like here's a circle, and here's the outer perimeter of the record. And the idea is that all of these timelines are like a spiral, just like the groove of the song of a record, and it spirals inward further and further and further until you get to the center. And when you get to the center, that is where there is a wormhole, like a little tiny break in the membrane. I call the membrane of death, because it is a flowing membrane, just like a waterfall, that is comprised of all the final moments. Call them the final denouement of your life. And that is like the word for the ending of a movie. And the idea behind it is that if we take your entire life, like if you lived 52 years, if we just take a snapshot of your mind and your neurology and everything that you are at that last moment of 52, it contains the implication of the entire journey that led you up to that moment. So we don't have to keep all of the spaghetti hanging out behind you. We can just keep that last moment. And that's what this membrane is all about. This is a flowing membrane. So this, I'm holding up right now my yellow sculpture that is of the chakras. It's 2 tori, and all of these are timelines that converge at this center point and emanate from this center point. And the center point is the singularity. It is the source. It is the 0th dimension. So first of all, it's the singularity, but it is science's singularity, but not the singularity of the transhumanist movement. And I'll tell you very openly, I am not a transhumanist. I made that very clear on the live stream, that I promote the idea that in order to achieve, your greatest levels of inner potential and consciousness expansion, you do not need anything more than what you were born with in this world. Your physical body and your mentality and your spirit and your capacity to feel unconditional love, all of the things that you can't buy in a store. That is all that is required. And this concept, so I'm holding up the flying rainbow lasagna now. This concept of the flying rainbow lasagna, I am sharing it as open source code because this is like interdimensional ethics. It would not be very ethical, or I would say this, it would speak a lot about me as a person if I said, I created this wonderful new thing that is a way that everybody can rearrange their genetic code and transcend their limitations. If I only wanted to have it for myself or to share it for $1 billion with, a billionaire like Bill Gates or something like that, then that would speak a lot about me, about who I am. And I hope that it speaks a lot about my value system and where I derive from, that I am sharing this with as many people as I can openly. So my value system, people joke, they're like, Aurora, where do you come from? Let me do a little brief pause here. Brief pause. Aurora, where do you come from? Like, what's your planet? And I used to joke because I used to have an old community access TV show in my old hometown of Woodstock, New York. Hello, thank you for joining in. I used to have a TV show that was called Planet Aurora, and I joked every Wednesday night that I was flying to my home planet and I was broadcasting from there. But, however, it's an allegory, and in truth, in actuality, my origin as a galactic presence is not a location in the night sky that you can point to and say, like, that star over there or that star over there. I come from a consciousness collective. And I say, first of all, I know that I say these things on the radio almost every week, and I apologize for being repetitive, but I thank my long-term listeners, and I'm now playing one of your favorite songs. The idea of, I don't come from a physical place. I come from a collective of consciousness, and the collective is not an evil, fascist, totalitarian state hive mind. Now, I understand that now. So I'm new, but I'm not that new. I've been here for about 16 years. When I first started to describe my origins to people, and I would say like a hive mind or a collective of consciousness, I understood from their emotional response that is not, they had a negative impression. And I did more research. I learned more about this place. I understood everyone is perceiving through their anthropomorphic filter of the totalitarian fascist states that we've experienced, especially like in the 20th century. So I understand now that many humans conceive like that a hive mind would be like communist totalitarian state where you lose all individuality, where you lose your own inner integrity, and then have to mitigate your own individual desires to the overarching state within which you exist. That's not what my collective is like at all. No. My collective of consciousness is much more like, I like to say, it's like advanced jazz band. All right. So first of all, you have to audition to get into the band. And the idea is that we wish to have people in the band who are musically literate. That means that you can perceive this pattern of consciousness as it flows. So all of these patterns that I paint, I perceive them. I don't get these ideas from another living human being. I don't get my ideas for my radio show or my online class from another human being. I get it from tuning in to the stellar network, or tuning in through the top of my head. I'm pointing to my forehead or the top of my head. I'm tuning in to the stellar network, and that is where I get these wonderful ideas from. Brief pause. So I like to say that in terms of perception, the chakra or energy center that's on your forehead, right above your eyes, that is like the library card of the cosmos. And the chakra that is on the top of your head, where you plug into the cosmos, that is like the librarian. And the librarian tells you what books you need to check out with your library card. And all of this is very necessary, because if you just have a library card and you go to the library of the cosmos and you check out a bunch of random books and you read the pages out of order, you are telling yourself lies by using facts. Like, you can use facts to tell a lie if you tell the facts out of order and in the wrong combination. So the most important thing is not just to be given facts through this aperture on your forehead, but to be given them in a comprehensive structure that actually gives you wisdom and truth. And that is what it is to be guided by this higher presence that is the crown chakra. None of this has to do with earth religion. Not to offend anyone who is a proponent of earth religion, but the chakra that is on your forehead is known as your Christ chakra. It doesn't have anything to do with the Christian religion or the religious figure that is known as Jesus Christ. And I have to make this distinction. Hey, you know something? I wear a cross, but I'm not a biblical literalist. I wear it in order to reclaim that symbol, and because I had an experience of actual Christ consciousness, which is what happens when you open up this eye and look through this chakra, and when you are connected to the library. So basically all of this artwork, this is the evidence that I go to the library and then I read a lot and then I share it with other people. So none of these ideas come from gleaning the rest of what is here on the surface of Earth. All of these ideas that I get, they come from the stellar network. It's where everything comes from. Not only does the energy of our physical body come from the stellar network, like your flesh, and the calcium for your bones and the iron for your blood, all of that comes from stars that have already died and are ancient. And the physical vitality for you to eat food now comes from the star that is alive and shining on us right now. But even more than that, the timelines that we experience, these are the timelines that make up our non-physical body. These also are emanated from the stars. Stars send out photons. The photons create these timelines, and we experience these timelines. Or it's like saying the stars or the stellar network is that musical composer that makes the beautiful music and writes that score of potential that we then follow with the needle of our awareness, or we play that by being aware in the world. So there is an overarching, like a creator, a composer that creates the potential, and then we are the musicians actually playing the music. So, and I speak about this analogy all the time. In order to be a good musician in the band, first of all, you have to tune your instrument. Your instrument is your body. I'm pointing now to one of my pictures over here, a picture of the body with the chakras. this is an idealized picture because most people have their chakras canted at an angle, not in perfect alignment. But it's just like if I gave you an anatomy text, I would give you the anatomy of a healthy human, not a human that, like has all of their blood pouring out or, serious heart disease or something like that. This is the ideal template. Base yourself upon this ideal template over here. And the idea is actually, I'm switching track a little bit. In terms of perfecting the body, I have to get this across that the body that we are presently experiencing is a degraded form of our true potential. And this degradation happened between 10 and 20,000 years ago. What we are living in this format right now, this is like analogous to the version of the domesticated dog. So dogs were domesticated from wolves. Wolves run around fine. They have no problem with sleeping outside, live in the cold, don't have a problem with fleas and mange, and they, have learned to live without the intervention and assistance of humans. But domesticated dogs only survive and thrive with the intervention of humans to help them. And if you don't feed them and take care of their mange, like junkyard dogs are tragic, pathetic, sad cases that they don't have anyone loving and feeding and taking care of them, and they're in horrible state. So humans are dogs. Again, I do not mean to cast aspersions or be insulting to you in this. That's not my intention of being here. I'm not saying like I'm a fancy extraterrestrial and you're all a bunch of dogs. Like, no, I'm not saying that at all. In fact, the whole point is I had to come into one of these bodies and transform it with this flying rainbow lasagna shape of potential, and that is the way that each one of us as a domesticated human can return to our wild, undomesticated format. So domesticated dog eats dog food out of a can, sleeps in a bed next to a human, or, whatever, sleeps on the floor next to the bed next to a human. But domesticated humans, we eat plants and animals that grow in a garden, or plants and animals that come to a grocery store and we buy them with money. We're supposed to eat nothing but pure sunlight. That is the intended format of our physical and non-physical bodies, the way that they were created before the genetic degradation. The genetic degradation is the result of consciousness invaders that came to our planet, that they are invaders that are malevolent, and they basically go around mining consciousness from various solar systems. So we're not the first solar system to be harmed and raped in this way. Hopefully we will be the last, because we are right now presently brewing up the antidote to this horrible disease. So there's a lot of lies out there. There's a lot of lies that say, oh, Earth is quarantined because Earth is infected with the disease and humans are dangerous and fearful, evil predators, and they're not allowed to connect with the rest of consciousness at large because they just, piss and shit over everything. That's not true. That is blame the victim mentality. This infestation of consciousness that is basically technological. It exists throughout the cosmos. It's not just in our solar system. It's in many other star systems. And it came to our solar system. Solar system is like a family. And we're on, Earth is one of the family members in the family here. And unfortunately, a couple of other of our family members have been horribly murdered, raped and murdered right in front of us. And this is the planet that's known as either Malduk or Marduk, which is presently a bunch of rubble. It's known as the asteroid belt. But science recognizes that it used to be a planet. So according to the harmonic structure of our solar system, and the harmonic structure is just like the notes on my piano. We know that there's supposed to be a note here because there's a note here. But this note in our solar system is a pile of rubble and it's not actually there. So then science recognizes there's supposed to be something there that's not actually there. And Mars also was harmed and degraded. It does not have a magnetosphere. Any planet that does not have a magnetosphere, it's like saying they don't have this non-physical structure that is surrounding and interpenetrating them. Brief pause. Mars does not have a magnetosphere, and Venus does not have a magnetosphere. So in the very, very sad and tragic story of our solar system, a planet was destroyed and 2 other planets were completely killed, even though their dead bodies are still flying around up there. And then they came to Earth. So these are the beings that came to Earth after they disrupted and destroyed what was happening on Mars. And they came into the human genetic code. So at the time that humans were on Earth, before the genetic code was harmed and destructured, humans ate light. Humans didn't have to eat other living beings. Humans didn't have to kill in order to be alive, and death was not in existence. Brief pause. So death did not exist before the invasion of consciousness came to our planet. I mean, death on our planet. I'm just trying to get across to you how much everything changed and how profoundly everything changed when those consciousness invaders came. And everyone right now, I'm not the first person to speak about this. There are many alternative archaeologists who speak about how our race, the humans, has amnesia, that it has only the memory of basically the past 6,000 years, what is known as recorded human history, but that there are a lot of stone monuments that are much more ancient, according to archaeoastronomy, than human civilization. And there are also ancient monuments that appear to have been created using forms of technology that are beyond what is even available to humans presently on Earth. And there's stones at Baalbek that are so large that they could not be mined or moved with our present level of technology. And there are also stones that appear to be melted together as if they were molten and made into these complex, mosaic brick patterns in some of these, ancient megalithic sites. This is the whole point. I'm not the only person saying this, and it definitely helps, that we used to have a sophisticated planetary antediluvian culture. This is known as Atlantis, like a mythological place, and it is also described as a continent, but it wasn't just one continent. It was across our entire globe. And during that time, before the genetic invasion, humans lived very differently. First of all, our bodies did not degrade in 100 years. Like right now, in this time and place, you're lucky if you live 100 years. I had a beautiful elderly aunt. She went to heaven a couple of years ago, but she lived to be like 102. And that was celebrated. Like, she's a very rare person that can do that. And that's like, we were designed to be able to live hundreds, if not thousands of years. And that is what our body functioned like before the genetic degradation. And the reason for this is, so I'm right here, I'm at my window. Oh, it's perfect, actually. I can get some wonderful sunlight, like right in here, right in my forehead. So when you cannot eat sunlight directly due to the genetic squashing, it means that you have to have chloroplasts, chlorophyll, that catches the photon, turns it into a leaf, turns it into a starch, and makes it something that either you can eat or an animal can eat it, and then you can eat the animal. But the idea is that we can cut out the middleman. We don't have to have intermediaries. If your higher faculties are activated and properly functioning, then you can get all of the energy that you require directly from the sun and not have to have it fall on a plant and then eat the plant and get the microbes in your belly to probiotically ferment it so that you can access all of that energy and information. It's essentially information, brief pause. So here's another example of what I'm talking about. I know I've used this example before, that all of our food is the example of thought energy. There's a beautiful apple tree down there at the end of my driveway. There is this beautiful apple tree down at the end of the driveway there. And all year long, it thinks about creating apples. This is not just an apple tree that is sitting there absorbing sunlight like a lackadaisical, lazy person. It actually absorbs sunlight and thinks in a very focused way about first creating leaves and then creating blossoms and then pollinating those blossoms and then creating them as beautiful apples. And that tree sits out there every day and it creates the conception of manifested apples. And at the end of the season, I can actually walk down there and be so blessed to get one of those apples and actually chew it up with my moving mouth parts and put it into the cauldron of my belly and actually probiotically digest it and get all of that energy. It's thought energy. When I do that, I am ingesting thought energy from the tree and from the stellar network. So what I'm giving you right now, This is part of like a new software program, a new way of thinking about food that is on the transitional journey to being nothing but a pure light eater. Because what happened to squash us, to make us food eaters, didn't happen overnight. And our transition back to being light eaters takes time. So I have to say this because when I first came into this body in 2001, I thought like, I just need to eat nothing but pure light. I didn't understand that we are in a transitionary phase. So I didn't understand like, oh, I'm actually going to have to eat physical food at the same time. So I had to learn by trial and error that if in this time and place, in this body, if I try to just eat pure light, that my body gets very small, feels very weak, and starts to feel very sick, and then doesn't function anymore. So then I started to have to learn about food and what types of food are in existence. And then I learned all about the way that food in this time and place is adulterated with pesticides and genetically modified ingredients. So that's a journey that took a very long time. Again, I'm a walk-in. The whole point being that food is the solidified thought energy. I know you're totally with me. The solidified thought energy of the stellar network. So basically everything that we are is the stars. The carbon and the calcium that's in our bones. Oh, yes. So a question just came up in the chat. Do I consume meat? Yes, I do. I tried going vegetarian a couple of times and it doesn't work with my body structure. And so I eat meat and I eat protein. I try to get my protein sourced ethically. So we have a beautiful lady who lives in our town. She has eggs, chickens that she raises like her children, and I get beautiful eggs from her. And I'm out here in Humboldt County in California where there are a lot of farms and animals that are raised like in a pasture, not in a horrible building. So my protein that I eat, I try to get from animals that were treated properly and, from small local farms. And that's much more easy to do here where I am than I understand in some other places. But yes, the quality of the consciousness of your food actually absolutely affects the trajectory of your own spiritual and emotional consciousness and everything like that. So yes, you can be a spiritual person and you can eat meat and eat protein, but it shouldn't be factory farmed food that lived in horrible fear. Like, no, I don't just eat the cheapest chicken that is available at the grocery store. I actually go to the food co-op and I get the chickens that were raised on the local farm, and that they probably like had a lot of fear when they were killed, but up until the day that they were killed, they had a good life. Brief pause while I do my thing. So, and also this is another thing, when I'm actually consuming my food and when I'm consuming this, meat that I eat, I thank the actual animal, even though it is not physically alive anymore. You can talk to its DNA. And this is not just something that you're imagining. You can literally speak to its DNA and say, thank you, and please integrate into my own body. And when you eat the way that we're supposed to eat, the consciousness that you are eating becomes like a seamless continuum with your own consciousness, and then it flows back to the sun. This is the whole idea that if you're eating a salad or if you're eating a piece of chicken, both of those energies originated at the sun, at the stars. And as you're eating them, you can broadcast back that experience in real time. And that's how you don't get emotional residue and things that are stuck and deposited. We are supposed to always be broadcasting in real time. This is what we were designed for. We were designed to be conduits of this stellar consciousness. So the way it works right now, you come here, you get born as a baby, and in the first year of your life, you are still connected through your fontanelle, through that soft spot at the top of your brain, to the universal, numinous, oceanic consciousness. And that's why it feels so wonderful to hug and cuddle little babies. Like you're hugging and cuddling the cosmos when you do that. And as we get installed the human operating system, it's a hacked operating system. It was not created and designed by humans. It was created and designed by overlords of consciousness that invaded our planet and that have intended to degrade the functioning of your own body and mind and structure. It's basically like you've been taken prisoner, and that's not a very happy making piece of information. Like, oh, I'm a prisoner. Like that's not going to make you feel very happy. However, I will not just give you a dire description of your circumstance without giving you some tool to get out, and the way you get out is flying rainbow lasagna. That humanity has been limited in the shape of its DNA, the shape and functioning of its DNA for a very long time, and that this is the pencil with an eraser that you can use in order to restructure your DNA. So I'll talk a little bit about this, and I'm doing the live feed at the same time. You can't see on the radio what I'm holding up, but I'm holding up this picture, sculpture of the two tori that make up the chakras of your body, or energy centers of your body. And these are all of your timelines of possibility and probability, and they all converge at the singularity in the center. And the singularity is not transhumanism's singularity, or the coming together of man and machine, but instead is science's definition of the singularity, which is basically the center of a black hole. It is the stretching of the fabric of space and time, and I add in consciousness, to the point that it is stretched infinitely. Like if we take an infinitely stretchy piece of beach ball fabric and put an infinitely heavy bowling ball on top of it, it begins to stretch into a vortex shape, and it goes down, 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 and it can go down an infinite amount because it's an infinitely stretchy fabric. So we are allowed to stretch the fabric of time, space, and consciousness, but we are not allowed to actually cut it, because I said this is a living three-dimensional embroidery. And if you start to cut the threads of the embroidery, it's very much like, if you cut a sweater and then it has those threads and you can pull them out. If you do enough, you can unfurl the entire sweater. This is a living matrix of energy. So it's just like an ecosystem. If we have this plant feeds this insect, and this insect feeds this animal. If we get rid of plant, insect, or animal, someone's going to die. That's the whole point. So in this time structure, it is a living three-dimensional embroidery. If we pull too many threads, somebody's going to die. This is the whole point. We are interconnected. You are not merely swimming around in your own private kiddie pool of consciousness. You are not merely a garage musician playing in your own garage band. You are part of an overarching ecosystem of consciousness that is also playing its own music. And the whole idea is to harmonically integrate what you are doing with what the rest of everyone and life is doing. So right now, humans on Earth are not harmonically integrating with each other, with the planetary ecosystem, or with the cosmos. It's not your fault. I was saying the quarantine that happened, with the reason why are humans cut off from the rest of the cosmos? Like, why are you not talking with beings that live on other planets? Why are you not receiving information and nourishment from other planets? Like New York City is a sophisticated, cosmopolitan city. You can basically talk to anyone on the entire globe. You can get food from anywhere on the entire globe, clothing from anywhere. Like, it's a cosmopolitan, connected place. It's not like, the middle of the Amazon in a village that doesn't have electricity, where you can't connect with the rest of the globe. Well, humanity right now is more analogous to living in that unconnected village. There's a whole network of consciousness. There's, the stellar network of consciousness, and there's a whole connected network of many different civilizations. So I have to make a distinction here. I don't mean to be dualistic, because the flying rainbow lasagna shape is all about resolving duality, but I have placed non-terrestrial consciousness into two basic camps, that there are those who use technology and those who do not have to use technology. So, for example, you and I, we have these beautiful organic multicellular bodies. We eat our food that comes from the sun. We poop it out. We don't have to use technology. It's not like I have to uninstall your batteries or put in new batteries when you're hungry. You don't do that. However, there are space races that are based in technology, and that is what they function like. They don't eat food. They don't have gardens and go outside and eat their strawberries out of their gardens. They have batteries. And those beings are the consciousness invaders that invaded humanity, more than 10,000 years ago, and degraded our present level of consciousness and turned the undomesticated human form, the wolf, who you are as a wolf, into your present domesticated form, who you are as a dog. The reason you're a dog is because you got to go to work. You got to earn some money. You got to buy your food in a grocery store, and you got to, have money for your rent so you can live in a shelter, in a dwelling. That is not the way we were intended to live. Just as a wolf was not intended to eat dog food out of a can and sleep at the end of a human's bed, and also to take commands from a human. So the consciousness invaders transformed the human body so it could no longer eat its food directly from the stellar network. And in the same way that humans domesticated dogs and the humans set themselves up as masters, they say, you want dog, you want food, you're going to have to do what I want you to do. And then after you do what I want you to do, I will reward you with food, okay? This is what the domesticated humans have overlords that say, I ain't going to just feed you. You want food, you're going to have to do what I want you to do. This is called having a job. So in the olden days, before the corporatocracy, having a job meant being a serf, like you worked for the king, or you worked for the local religious figure. You know, what you were basically owned by the god or gods of that time and place. And these are small g gods, because real God, real divinity, this is like the source. You know, the inventor, creator of all of the musical score and all of the instruments and all of the consciousness that makes it all go. But these small g gods, these are like the hackers. They took what was already in existence and they modified it slightly. And they portrayed themselves as the God Most High. This is why I say I'm not here to cast aspersions on human religions. I do want to tell you that I perceive them as control systems of the mind. That these are the control systems that are used to control you in the same way that training is used to control a domesticated dog. Like you train a dog and you tell it good dog, and like dogs have a genetic need to be told that they are good. And humans have a genetic need to be told that they are good also, because there's that basic training that says by religion, you are a sinner and you're bad and you're wrong and you're shameful and everything you do is ugly and gross. And it is only, if you do something good, then God will smile upon you and pat you on the head and say, good, you are a good human. All of that is domestication. And as you begin to flying rainbow lasagna is not only a noun, it's this thing that I'm holding up here, it's also a verb. It is a way of changing and transforming your DNA from its domesticated dog-like structure back into its non-domesticated wolf-like structure. But you don't just have to go back to what you were or what one was in the antediluvian Atlantic culture. We can transcend that too, because clearly there were vulnerabilities if it was possible for it to be invaded and degraded to this point. So it's just like saying, if you catch a virus, you can transcend that virus and then you don't go back to being the same person you were before. You are now that person plus the antibodies that make it possible to not have a virus like that anymore. So what we are doing right now on Earth is quarantined from the rest of the cosmos. We are like in a little petri dish, and we are growing the antidote to this virus of the mind or virus of consciousness that we have all been infected with. So the DNA got degraded more than 10,000 years ago, and our planet got cut off from the rest of the cosmos. Not because we are infected or infested, but because if we got information and energy and assistance from the rest of the cosmos, we would be healed. We would be all better. So it is blame the victim nonsense to say, oh, no, you're all stuck here, not connected in terms of mentality and consciousness and energy to the rest of the cosmos because you are not worthy, because you are sick or degraded or fearful or something like that. This is one of those New Age lies that has been taught to, many different people. And so I'm here to bust those lies. That's not true. Earth is quarantined or barricaded from talking to other people. So it's totally unimaginable that being on Earth right now means that you cannot effectively talk with other people in the cosmos. It's like if you lived in China, but there was a great firewall of China. You cannot get every website that you possibly want to get if you live in China. There is censorship. Here on Earth, there is censorship as to the broadcasts telepathically that you can receive and send out. That's crazy. That's crazy, 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 because we are part of a giant body. There should not be any censorship of broadcasts between like my big toe and my brain. If there is, we call that a disease. That would be like the result of some neurological problem or something like that, or you've cut off the big toe. Like that is not. So the stellar network and our entire fabric of consciousness is supposed to be connected and intercommunicative so that you know what's going on. The supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy is supposed to know what is going on in each one of our lives. And that's the big, takeaway that I would like to tell each one of you, that divinity or higher consciousness or God or whatever we would like to call it is not some far distant abstraction. It is a very real, very present abstraction. But it is not the anthropomorphic God that is portrayed in the human genetic code as something that should be adored and worshipped. The wrong thing is being adored and worshipped, just like humans are adored and worshipped as the masters of dogs. But dogs don't understand. Humans did not create you. Humans hacked the wolf and created you and set themselves up as your masters to be adored. Brief pause. So part of returning to the wild, undomesticated format is changing the software structure in your mind. It's like the first stage. Understanding about food. Food is not just a solid object that you put in your body and then your body has more fuel to go. That's like running your body like a steam engine of your body. Like you put coal in your mouth and then it burns in the cauldron of your belly and then you belch out steam, and the steam allows you to move your arms and legs and then you poop out poop. Steam engines are very inefficient engines. That is not the way our bodies were designed to be used, and that's why our bodies get used up and degraded over time, and you're lucky if they last 100 years. You're not using your bodies in the way that they are supposed to be used. This is the degraded human format. And more than that, in terms of navigating the time field, navigating this structure of time, when the human genome was degraded, it meant that these higher faculties were blinded, and then it was no longer possible to simply see down the road, to see into the future. In this time and place, if I say to you, hey, is it normal to see the future, or is that considered superhuman? Most people would say, that is superhuman. Only special people can see the future. Like, a prognosticator, like a telepathic individual, and you would pay them a lot of money because they look in their crystal ball and they can see the future. All of us are supposed to be able to see the future. Like it is our intended format to be able to see the future. That's like saying the intended format of my car is to have a windshield that I can actually see through as I drive down the road. Totally, I would never design a vehicle that did not have a windshield and you drove down the road by constantly bashing into the guardrail as a way of figuring out if you're going in the right direction. That is not right, but that is how humanity has been navigating the time field since our higher faculties were diminished about 10 or 20,000 years ago. So basically, our planet was raped and is in the process of being murdered, and we have all been taken prisoner. This is very dire. This is not like a happy thing to hear and find out about. But the happy news is flying rainbow lasagna. This exists since 2001. This is what I created and invented in this higher dimensional language of vibration. So the higher dimensional language, it can be seen as artwork. I'm pointing to some artwork, and can be understood as music. And it is something that our bodies as individual musicians play or emit to the world. I said Earth is quarantined, and we are here figuring out the antidote to this infestation. The infestation isn't just on our planet. It's in our solar system and many other solar systems too. So we are like a petri dish in the idea that what we are growing here as the antidote can then be applied to other similar places, places that have similar diseases to what we have. So the disease is invaders of consciousness came and degraded the genetic code and basically placed an overlay of consciousness into what was already here, what was already functioning here. And this was the invention of death. And the invention of death was not only the invention of you die as an individual as opposed to ascending and having an unbroken state of consciousness. Ascension is not analogous to the Christian rapture. My longtime radio listeners hear me say this all the time. Ascension does not mean that you'll be floating upward, although that is a very poetic, rather romantic image, like wearing a white dress and floating upward. It's very lovely, but ascension really means that you have tuned your needle of your awareness, or the trajectory that you are flying through time, to be on that path of least likelihood. to be aligned with that central axis, like the tent pole that holds up the entire structure. It means you're on the right timeline. And being on the right timeline means you exist in the right physical location, and all the cells of your body are doing the right things, and you're metabolizing the right energy, and you're thinking the right thoughts and believing the right belief system. And if you do all of those things, then you do not have to have a break in the continuity of your consciousness. I'll just do a brief pause, break in consciousness. Continuity of consciousness. This is what lucid dreaming is within one life. So you got your daytime awareness, you got your nighttime awareness, and then you have this barrier, this membrane between the two. And it is difficult for most people to maintain their daytime consciousness and their sense of self and their sense of continuity as they go to sleep at night, and to remember what they did at night in that other level of consciousness, and then go back across that membrane again and bring it forward in the morning. That's what the cultivation of lucid dreaming is all about. And the monks of the Far East, like the Tibetan Buddhists, the meditators of the Far East, they have developed techniques for meditation that allow for what I would call like lucid dreaming across lifetimes. And this is the definition of what it is, to be a Karmapa, like the 17th Karmapa. He can remember 17 generations, 17 times. This entity has gone through the death process 17 times, but he can remember because he didn't lose his continuity of consciousness. It's like saying, I went into a dream and I remembered I was in a dream, and then I went to bed in that dream and I went into another dream and I remembered I was a person in bed dreaming I was in a dream. And the 17th Karmapa did that 17 times. It's a high level of self-awareness about to what degree one is embedded within time. Brief pause while I collect my thoughts here. It is not necessary or desirable at the end of your physical existence or at the end of your life or whatever to have to forget everything that you've learned and forget who you are in order to continue on your journey. The idea is that there are eternal aspects of self. Some aspects of self are temporal. They are only associated with the temporal ego. Like, hey, this is my favorite shirt and I wear it on this body, and this is my house where I live at this address, and this is my spoon that I eat out of this kitchen. Those are all, thank you very much for inviting anyone, if you're sending out shares to invite people. These are all the temporal trappings of the ego, and these are not the eternal structures. So I do not have to take with me the shirt that I'm wearing to my next incarnation. But what I will take with me to my next incarnation is my creative capacity, my artistry. In this time and place, it comes through as visual artwork and music and communication and sculptures and animation. If I moved to a different world, and if everybody was a plant in that world, I would express these tendencies through being a plant in that world. So that's the whole idea, the difference between your temporal ego and your eternal tendencies. And really, our experience here in life is a refinery of consciousness. And what the refinery is doing, like in the mineral realm, a refinery takes out impurities and it leaves behind only like the gold or the mineral that you want, the ore that you want. And what we are doing here in this refinery of consciousness is refining out all of the temporal stuff, all of the debris, the detritus, the things that aren't the real you. This shirt isn't the real me. It's just the shirt that I'm wearing right now in this time and place. It doesn't define who I am, as opposed to the characteristics or aspects of self that define who you are on a profound level. Those aspects of self go through each of your lifetimes, each of your incarnations, and those aspects of self will stay with you even as you ascend. And ascend means transcending death. It means you're no longer going to have to hit that membrane of death, be disassembled, circulate back to the beginning, and start the entire choose your own adventure novel of your life back from the start again. It means that you can now drive down the road of time looking through the windscreen, in control of the vehicle because you've got your hands on the steering wheel, and you don't have to crash into the guardrail and go over the edge into a ditch and die. You can now just continue on this journey endlessly. And it doesn't mean that the process of refinement ends. Once you ascend, you become an ascended master. It doesn't mean you stop learning in any way. No, it means you continue the journey of learning and personal development and growth at the next octave. You go from this octave to this octave, and then one day you'll be up here in this octave. So the journey essentially never ends. And this is also to understand, like, not to idolize an ascended master. That's like a person that has graduated from college. They did the coursework and they graduated from college. And this is actually a very good analogy, because as you're going through this process of refinement, it is very much like writing a term paper or writing a thesis, and you save edits, you save versions. Like I got up to chapter 23 today and I saved my work, just like I'm saving my audio work over here. And then tomorrow I'll make more edits and I'll save the work that I do then. And then the final, when you complete your work and you save it for the final time, that is ascension. That's, I know there's all of this heavy charged emotional language about biblical literalism and being saved. Think of it like saving a term paper. It just means that is the final edited form, the perfected form of who you are. And everything is intentional, and you've crossed all of the T's and you've dotted all of the I's and you've checked out all of the grammar, and everything checks out. And then you turn in the term paper of your life to the professor. The professor is like, the cosmic deity or the musical composer of the band over here. You turn in your work and it is accepted. Like, yes, you graduate, you pass, you get the stamp of approval, you graduate, you go to the next level, and then you continue learning and refining at that next level. So again, this is to say, the journey of consciousness does not have to end. It is not intended to end. It is intended to be like a perpetual motion apparatus. You can have perpetual motion within a finite world. You can have just like two walls and you can bounce back and forth, like imagine a rubber ball bouncing back and forth between two walls and endlessly, infinitely. And that is essentially what we have with this flying rainbow lasagna shape. This is an infinite perpetual motion oscillation that we can continue to experience. We don't have to experience death or an end to that oscillation. Brief pause. So I say this on the radio all the time. Death is the aberration, like a socially aberrant behavior, like picking your nose in public, the thing that is not supposed to exist. None of us are supposed to die. We are not supposed to have to kill other things so that we can eat and stay alive. And I understand that there's all sorts of guilt that people carry about the necessity of eating other things. And that's really, I understand why vegetarianism and veganism has come about as a conscious reaction against the necessity of having to kill or take another life in order to maintain and extend your own. I know that there are even practitioners in India, certain ascetic sects, that will not eat any plant that had to give up its life. They'll only eat, fruits or something like that. Like if an avocado falls off the tree and the tree gives it to you, then they're allowed to eat it, but they would never pull a carrot out of the ground and eat the root, thereby killing the entire plant. So it depends on how far you want to take that particular level of guilt and expression of guilt in your life. But I do not espouse any belief systems that are about guilt or shame or embarrassment. So yes, when you eat your food, instead of feeling guilty or eating the minimal amount that you possibly can eat, you need to celebrate your food, celebrate the organisms that gave you your life, their life, so that you could have your life. And in that moment of eating, like with your taste buds, you can connect with the genetic structure of the plant or animal that gave you those nutrients, and you can also connect with the stellar network. And you send a real-time broadcast, like this is what an avocado tastes like. Like it's like thanking the sun. Thank you for giving off the photons that grew into this plant that I can now place on my taste buds and put into my body. And it is the beginning of a burgeoning relationship between yourself as an individuated, embodied human and the network that emanated you. So make back to this basic distinction of different types of extraterrestrials. The ones that emanated us, this is the stellar network, but then there are all of these technology-using extraterrestrials that are intermediaries, and those are like the masters of the dogs, and they will tell you, we are the gods, listen to us. We pat you on the head, we tell you that you're good, and we give you your food out of a can. They are not God. And what would be really loving would be to have each one of us transform, I'm holding up the flying rainbow lasagna, into our wolfish form. And so that means that we can now eat pure sunlight directly from the sun. We do not have to have grocery stores. We do not have to have the infrastructure of agriculture and farming. we do not have to, our entire economy would be structured very differently. So, economy and ecology, this is not just you living as an isolated individual. That's the whole idea. You can ask me, Aurora, why don't you just become a light eater, blah, 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 and not have to shop at the grocery store anymore? And the answer is because I am submerged within this cultural matrix, within this whole entire social and economic pattern, and we all need to change. It is the answer to this question. It is so difficult to just change as one individual. Like you're just going to be one perfected, shining individual in this, totally corrupt garbage heap of everything that's going on. That's like saying you're the one musician in the band that's actually in tune, playing the right notes, playing on the beat. Everyone else is totally out of tune, playing the wrong notes and doesn't keep the beat at all. That's horrible music. In order for us to really return to being light eaters or to transcend these levels of reality, we need to all work together. This painting over here has many different figures in it. It is not just one lone figure. So we exist in a pattern that is connected, and it's not just in this time and place now. It is connected over time. Our DNA is connected to our ancestors, but not just to our own ancestors. So if I have a Caucasian body, I'm not just connected to the ancestors that lived, in Russia or in, the Caucasian mountains or something like that. I am connected to ancestors that were ancient Maya and Inca and Aboriginals in Australia and Inuit in Alaska. What I'm trying to say is don't be too literal when you think about your ancestry. It is not just the ancestry of this particular biological container. It is the ancestry of your consciousness or of your soul, that you've lived in many different containers, and you are connected to different cultures across time, the people that you came from and the beings that you will emanate to. We are submerged within this past, present, future matrix of time. And I said earlier, you're like a little ant stuck on the surface of a leaf, and you have to go from breakfast to lunch to dinner. You can't jump directly from breakfast to dinner. However, with the flying rainbow lasagna, you can transform your genes and your experience of your genes so that now you can talk with an ancient Mayan person from, 1,000 years ago. You can talk with someone from 10,000 years ago. This is necessary, the folding of time and space, because you might wish to speak to someone who lives on a far distant planet or star system. And if you could only do line of sight broadcasting over linear distances, it would take billions of years for those broadcasts to get between you. So it would be totally a moot point by the time your broadcast reached them and it bounced back to you. In order to have any type of a real-time conversation with someone that lives very far away, you have to be able to fold time and space, because otherwise it takes so very long for the messages to even reach you. And on last week's radio broadcast, I was speaking about ascension and how when you ascend, it means that you no longer will have dead skin cells. Like, it doesn't just mean that you will be regenerating your cellular structure at such a high level of vitality that it will be like you live forever, that literally you don't have to die. The cells of your body don't have to die. You're not going to be shedding all of your dead skin cells, finding dead hair falling out of your head on your hairbrush, or any of the things that we emanate. Like, it is a very different approach to life. It's much more clean and fuel efficient, right? Like I said, we've been using our bodies like an inefficient steam engine, belching away, creating all these free radicals. And we're supposed to be more like a solar-powered, clean vehicle where all we have to do is eat nothing but pure sunlight, and we do not emit all of these byproducts and aspects of, it's like an inefficient engine. When people drive by with their loud Harley-Davidson motorcycle engines, sometimes I want to say to them, like, the loudness of your engine shows that it is inefficient. The heat and loudness and friction of your engine shows that it is very inefficient. I know they don't care about their engine's efficiency. They do like the loudness, but the whole point is a truly efficient engine would have no heat byproducts, would have no friction, would have no sound emitted by it. So when our bodies really get into perfect tune, when we really become perfect musicians of the cosmos, we will not be emitting any of these pollutions anymore. And like I said, we won't have to have the economy set up as we presently do in terms of having to farm plants and animals. And think about the history of human culture. Think about like going back to ancient Sumeria, where they talk about how the gods, small g gods, gave humanity agriculture. And this is the whole idea of why humans require agriculture. Why did human culture arise as it did? And the answer is because humans went from being light eaters that live in an ascended state connected completely to the stellar network and became dense beings that have to kill other beings in order to stay alive and experience death themselves. But all of this is a software program. You can transform your hardware by changing your software program. I'm at the end of this broadcast, but this is definitely not the end of the journey. So thank you to everyone who is a long-term listener. Thank you to people who are new, who are just tuning in for the first time. And please continue to prepare. We are giving birth to the new dimension. It was not even, for years I've been saying, get ready. It's here. We're doing it.